Good morning, Bonjour. That's hello in Potawatomi. It's so good to be with you here today on this live stream at Star Nation's organization's main fan page. It's Saturday morning, and did the card draw, getting ready to discuss it. You know, I can't tell you. There's a certain feeling in the air today. How do I want to say this? There's a hopefulness. There's a sense of, I don't know, I want to call it joy. And that doesn't mean that there's not, stuff going on in in my life that may not be as joyful, but optimistic. That's a good word. Optimistic. Yeah, that's how it's feeling this morning. It was a little bit of a trying morning for my mom. It's the weather. We're going to be getting rain and thunderstorms this afternoon, and so her body is kind of reacting to that. And so spending time with her and working with that this morning. After we finish, trying to get the pain stuff, situated and a little bit more comfortable at least. When we're done and I'm up here or I go do on to the next thing, I always have this feeling of gratitude and God, that's so awesome. Not that she's in pain, but how spirit works. And when we call on our spiritual team to assist us, and how they come in to be able to guide us and show us. We might not always understand what it is that we're supposed, what they're showing us, or why we're supposed to do what we're doing. But just moving my hand just a little bit, and waiting for the release, And what I call that is when her body has taken enough of creator energy, and sending her pain down to Grandmother Earth for her assistance. There's a moment where I can feel in my hands it's time to move to the next spot, or we're finished, right? And if I try to rush it, I can't move my hands. They're like stuck. And so, but when we're finished and I'm on to the next thing, I always take a second and I always kind of think, wow, that is what Spirit shows us sometimes is just truly awesome. It really is truly awesome. Good morning, Elise and Allie. Thank you for being here with me this morning. Yeah, it's good to be with you. And Elise says, I feel a bit that way too. Tell your mom hello, and I pray for each. Thank you. I'll let her know that, Elise. I will. She knows a lot about my work. She's always asking me how things are going, and she's very excited about me coming up here to do the live stream shows in the morning, and doing the live stream shows for, using Be Live for our main shows. She's very interested in that, and asking me about how's the magazine doing. Oh, she likes our show hosts. They're giving so much of themselves. That's such a good thing to help other people. And so she knows what we kind of do here. I wouldn't say she knows it 100%, but she's very interested in it. Gives her a break from American politics. Because let me tell you, if you wanted to have a discussion about politics and what's going on in the world politically, she would dive into that conversation. She's got very, very definite opinions about things. And thank goodness that most of the time she and I are on the same page when it comes to that stuff. Otherwise, it might be even kind of more uncomfortable around politics if that weren't the case. In fact, before I get started, hi, Mary. Thanks for joining us. My niece, Erin Camacho, I'm going to say her name out loud because she's running for Wisconsin Senate and her district, which is District 31. So proud of her. Her grandma is just, that someone in the family isn't just talking about something should be done, but really is taking steps to try to be a part of the solution rather than the problem, right? That's an old cliche, but it's so true. And so she's very excited for her granddaughter too, and very proud of her. We all are, and wish her all the best. If we could vote for her, we would, but we live in a different district. So, so anyway, that's a little bit about home life here, anyway, right? Yeah, I know. Mary, Erin has a fire in her, and we're going to talk about that today. She has a fire in her that she stands up to use her voice, even though she says she's quivering when she does it, but she does it anyway, right? And so to put the word activist on her, yeah, I mean, I think that's a descriptive word that has so many connotations to it. I think that she is one of those protectors. She really is. She is an environmental protector. She is an indigenous woman who is trying to do her part in protecting Grandmother Earth. And I can't say how much I love her and respect her for standing up, which is good stuff. Good stuff. Politics is, what do they say you're not supposed to talk about at dinner? At dinner is religion, politics, and there was something else. There's three of them. Well, I grew up with a family who talked about politics a lot, and Erin is running under the Green Party, and my mom wasn't really familiar with the Green Party, and so I found some information for her online and through the Wisconsin chapter for the Green Party, and then Erin came to visit her a few weeks ago, and they had a chance to sit down and talk about the platform and all that detailed stuff. I wasn't part of that. I was working on the magazine and radio stuff, but they really are those are that is something that's really dear and close to my heart, and that is to watch these two generational. There's a big generation gap between the two of them, but there is a lot of love there too. I'm listening to the thunder beams that are starting to roll in. Yeah, I like that. Okay, guess what card we got today? Fire medicine, passion and spontaneity. And look at that artwork on there. Now, we've had this card before, I believe, early on in the month of May. And this is quite the artwork. There's so many layers to this. And so it doesn't surprise me that we would get this card again to discuss it from another perspective, and how today's energy that includes this energy, the fire medicine, and how it could affect our day, and how the energy comes to us and around us and through us, with and having this kind of information to either be witness to the unfolding of it, and or to be a direct participant in it, to be able to realize, oh, this is the fire medicine. This is why I had to tune in this morning to hear that one piece, or something like that, right? Yeah. Yeah, Mary, she says money. I know, that's true. Elise, would love to share a writing about Grandmother Earth. Maybe your mom would like it. Wrote it a while back, but I still haven't. Sure, absolutely. Elise, if you feel comfortable, you could include it in the comment here on this live stream, and if you don't mind sharing it with everybody. or you can PM it to me, and I will share it with Mom that way. Okay, I would love to read it. And depending on how you feel about it and how much you want to share it, at some point we could even publish it in the magazine. But we would need to talk a little bit about that, and get some of the fine details. Okay, yeah, but share it with me. I would love to read it and share it with my mom. So the fire medicine. It's starting to rain now. I'm thinking I'm going to have to close a window because it's starting to come down pretty hard. So if you'll excuse me just for a second. There we go. Yeah, it's actually raining pretty hard out there. The thunder beams started coming through just a couple of minutes ago. And we were supposed to get thunderstorms this afternoon. I guess those weather beings, weather spirits don't really care about man-made Earth time. They come when they're going to come. They don't care if it's before lunch or not. All right, so what we have is the fire medicine about passion and spontaneity. Jamie Sams, and this is her book that we're using the cards from for the daily card draw, the Sacred Path cards. Jamie Sams, the author, she writes that there are 6 forms of fire. And the 6 forms is the sun, grandfather sun. And then there's grandmother Earth's core. And then there's the fire from the lightning, those thunder beams. And then fire in the lava form. And the fire that burns wood. And there's also a fire within each of us that's an eternal flame, she says, and is our life force and spontaneity. So 6 forms. And as two-leggeds, we use each one of those forms every day of our life, practically. With the lightning, I mean, look how many of us, especially in Star Nations, we enjoy thunderstorms and watching them roll through and listening to the thunder rolling and seeing the lightning and connecting with the thunderbirds with that, right? Many of us do here at Star Nations. And we're always talking about Grandmother Earth and what she does for us, right? And at her core, and that's where the lava comes from, right? That especially now in recent days with Kilauea's eruption and the flow of the lava on that island, seeing it firsthand because so many people are videoing using their phones to show us, right? And so there's these 6 forms of fire, Jamie says. And she tells a little bit of the history from the Seneca point of view about the evolution of the two-legged. And they believe that there's five worlds, I believe. 5 worlds. And in the first world, she's talking about where it's like paradise, right? There was no need for fire because it never got cold enough. And the kind of food they ate didn't need to be cooked. It was a lot of berries and, vegetables and fruit. And so it wasn't until the second world, she says, and that is around the glacier time, that the earth started to change and we had many cold areas. And so in order to survive, the two-legged had to evolve and change. And so, that's where we get the fire the event of fire to be able to keep warm and to cook their food, because now that they needed to generate more heat, and that is to be able to take in some sort of protein, animal protein, and they used every bit of the animal to survive, from the hides for clothing to the meat for food to the bones for other things. They used everything, right? She says that was in the second world. And then she talks about the grandfather's son and how we carry grandfather's son within us at our core, and that is our part of our life force, right? And I was thinking about this after I read it. There is a belief, and I tend to agree with it, is that as above, so below, as within, so without, right? That is the Hermetic law. And so whatever is above us is also below us. So anything in the sky is also here on Earth. And there is the belief that we come from the stars, and that our body, and science has proven this, is that there's aspects of our physical body that carries elements from the stars. And many years ago, NASA we were doing some exploration experiments and all the stuff that they do. And when they started looking into the hologram information, what they found was when they took a human hair and put it into this machine, they could see what was inside the hair, more than just the physical, the physicalness of it. They actually saw the stars. And there's a belief that within us, we also carry the stars, the galaxy, that there is an actual galaxy within us, within our heart, our spiritual heart. And so when I read this part, that what Jamie wrote about grandfather's son, she says the grandfather's son lives inside us as well as the sky nation, and is located in our vibral core or middle body, just above our navel. And so this is the part of us that is like our generator. It's our heat generator. Yeah. And she goes on to say, she tells a story about the Trail of Tears. And for those who may not know about the Trail of Tears, it was the removal of the Cherokee Nation from the East Coast area to Oklahoma, and to be put on a reservation. And they were put on a rail for train for a certain part, a very short part of it, and then the rest of the way they had to walk. And they lost many people died on that journey from the east to the west. Generations were lost. And the story goes is that because they were also crossing during the winter time, that it was cold, and much colder than you're used to being on the East Coast and going west, right? Is that some of the adults, especially the warriors, what they would do is they say they would call down the sun, and to add to the sun within, and they would try to keep the children warm or the elders warm, and they knew that doing that so many times that they were using up their life force in order to keep someone else alive, and they did that for the people. And so that's how she tells a story about grandfather's son and how it resides within us. She uses a term there that I find really interesting, is about dropping the robes. Dropping the robes. And at first I wasn't quite sure, when I first read this book years ago, what that really meant. And So I had to put it in a way that I could understand it, the context. And really, it's about putting it in our vocabulary. It would be crossing over, transitioning. It would be in Potawatomi, it would be walking on, passing away, right? So some of these warriors knew the more often that they try to protect the people by using um, their son, the grandfather son within them, that they were literally giving up their life force for another. And when that's love for your people, putting your own life on the line for them and doing what it took to keep the children alive, because the children were the future, right? So she talks about that, but she also talks about how fire medicine is also our passion for living, our passion for living. Um, she says that our desire to love and be loved, our need for human companionship and warmth, our physical strength, the compassion we have for each other and for others. She says our creativity and our spontaneity, as well as the fire that fuels our medicine dreams. Our physical passion comes from the fire within our Earth Mother. So we are Grandmother Earth children. Our bodies replicate hers. Our brain waves are connected to her. Anytime we're outside of the Schumann wave, which is an earth energy, we are affected. It's called jet lag. So when you try and fly those transatlantic flights and you're experiencing jet lag, it's because you've been outside of the Schumann wave, outside of Grandmother Earth energy for a longer period of time. And, that can be corrected. We all know that. But that's one of the symptoms of when you're outside of her energy field, called the Schumann wave. And so literally we are so connected to her that our drive for life, our desire to thrive comes from her. She not only feeds us physically, but she feeds us energetically. And she does so much for us. Really, she really does. And she said, Jamie Sams goes on to say that when we bring our Earth Mother's love up through our feet and into our vibral core to meet Grandfather Son's inner fire, we have accomplished a type of inner creation, the divine union of the male and female. Now, for those of you who join me for the Unity Breath Meditation every month on my show, Communications from Home, this is one of the things that I talk about. The indigenous people across the world, not just the United States, across the world, know that there's a certain way of being. We call it a vibration, a frequency, that is the key to our enlightenment, the key to our ascension, the key to living our life from our hearts. And that is love. And it's the love that we have for Grandmother Earth and Grandfather Sky. And more importantly, it's the love that they have for us. And it flows through us all the time. We call it universal energy, right? And it comes up through our bodies from the earth and down through our bodies from above. And their love for us meets in our high heart. Now, it's happening all the time. You don't even have to do anything special, but turn your attention to it. And the more often you turn your attention to it, you begin to remember what it feels like to be in that energy field. And we get to see them every single day, twice a day. They literally show us, so we can see it with our physical eyes, and so that we can wrap our mental mind around it. And that is the sunrise and sunset. That is the twice a day that Grandfather Sky and Grandmother Earth come together close enough. And it's when the sun at sunrise breaks the horizon, and at sunset is when the sun sinks below the horizon. And think about that. What those 2 times a day, what it looks like, what the sky looks like, how beautiful it is. And there's that moment when either the sun comes up or the sun sets. There's a moment when everything is still. When everything is still. And as soon as the sun either pops up completely or sinks completely, is that it's in that breath, either the inhale or exhale, that you can feel the shift. And that's by turning your attention to it. That's why so many of us are enthralled. We want to see the sunrise or sunset, right? Have you ever done this? Yeah, put the book down for a second. At sunrise or sunset, and you're standing there, right, and you're watching. And many of us who are showing our love and respect for not just the sun but the Creator, is that we stand with our palms out facing the sun as it's either coming up or going down, right? Done that many times. Many times. And if you've ever seen that one movie, what's that movie with Nicolas Cage, and about angels? He's an angel, right? And he falls to earth. But the angels do that in the morning and in the evening. They stand and they face the sun. Yeah, like that. The Potawatomi, we're fire keepers. And so when I was reading about the fire medicine, which is the card for the day, it also brings a layer of memories about being a fire keeper and keeping the sacred fire. And the sacred fire is a physical fire, but it's also that fire within. It's also the fire of Grandmother Earth and Grandfather Sky when it meets in us. It's that sacred place. And to be a fire keeper, you're your own fire keeper because you're tending that sacred fire within. It's a time that we can really, when you turn your attention to it, and those memories are already in our heart, it's already in our DNA, it's already in our blood and bones, okay, from our ancestors. It's a time when you turn your attention to it that you can feel the unconditional love from the Creator through Grandfather Sky and Grandmother Earth. You are the divine child that's truly loved. And when I was teaching a lot of classes a few years ago, these are kind of classes I would teach, is that we would talk about being a divine child. And do you know what that feels like? Do you remember that? What would it feel like if you could imagine what that would be like? It's a way to bring to your mental mind the memory, because you have the memory already. It's already inside. There's nothing. City of Angels. Thank you, Elise. Yes, City of Angels. It is a wonderful movie. That feeling, that knowing that you're a divine child is nothing that you have to buy. It's nothing that you have to work really hard at. It's not in a book per se. It's in your heart. You already know it. It's a memory. It's in your Akasha records. You already know this. You came in with it. You came in being loved already. It's kind of like when, some teachers, they give you an automatic A, and all you had to do was keep it. Just do the work to keep it. And that's kind of the same thing. We already came in with the unconditional love. Then we spend the rest of our earth walk, our medicine walk here, remembering it, to capture that memory and to live through it. And that's what I get from this card, the medicine, fire medicine. We didn't talk about this part the first time we drew the card this much. But it's that love that we're shown twice a day physically through the sunrise and sunset, and how the energy, the fire from Grandmother Earth and Grandfather Sky meets in our body, in all our bodies, the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. They meet in our high heart every moment of every day, every inhale and every exhale, because the universal energy is constantly flowing through you, constantly. It's a gentle flow. It comes through your crystalline tube. Your pranic tube is another name for it. It's an energetic tube that runs through the center of us. For those who study the chakra system, it's also known as the Hara line, and how the universal energy runs through us. Through Awakening Illuminated Heart, through my teacher, Drendalo Melchizedek, is where I learned the vocabulary, what words that were used to describe this. And I put it that way because there was a moment in my studies that I remembered and what this feels like. And as a human, sometimes it's pretty hard to stay there. But once you recognize and remember the vibration, you crave it. You want to be in it. You want to be surrounded in it. You want to bathe in it. That's how much it feels really good. So once you identified what that memory is, because you've already had it. Chances are you already had it. Hey, Polly Joe, I'm so glad you're with us. Yeah. And Mary saying, at some beaches I have vacationed. As the sun sets, people drum or blow conch shells, to say goodnight to the sun. Everyone stands around and some hold hands up as you did. Yes, I've done that. I've drummed at sunset. I've drummed at sunrise. I've sang at sunrise. It's the old ones, the ancient ones, our ancestors, the Potawatomi, my relatives, my ancestors, what they would do every morning would put tobacco into the sacred fire to start their day in gratitude, gratefulness, and to pray, and so they would take their pinch of tobacco and they'd walk clockwise around the sacred fire and stand to face the east, because they would do it every morning, and they'd stand in the west to face the east, and they would put their tobacco into the sacred fire. And so the fire was always lit, because in those days that was their only energy source. It wasn't the furnace where you can turn up or turn down the thermostat. It was literally a fire. And it was outdoors, and they lived their life majority of the time outdoors. Living inside really was meant for sleeping and for inclement weather, rain, snow. But they spent most of their time outdoors, in nature. Yeah. Hi, Mary. I'm so glad you're with us. It's good to see your name in the chat room. Judy, good morning, Judy. She's saying that it's all been so amazing to me. Even as a small young girl, I've always been a sky watcher. I love the earth clouds, always been in awe. Yes, absolutely. I remember one time, I must have been in my, late 20s. And I was driving with my mom. I was driving, and it was fall. And, in the upper Midwest, our autumn, our fall, the colors are very dramatic, right? The change of seasons are very dramatic. And I remember we were at a stop sign, and I was sitting there, and I was looking at this tree, which was kind of across the street in kitty corner from us. And I was just into the color of that tree. It was, this brilliant red, and it was gorgeous. And I was just staring at it, and I was thinking, my God, that's so beautiful. I even said that out loud. And my mom is staring at me and she goes, I really didn't pay attention to that stuff when I was your age. And you're doing that in your 20s? That's how I came in, And when my mom was in her 20s, it was about survival. She was living in a huge city compared to where she was born. She was living in Milwaukee at the time, and city life, which she wasn't used to. And so it was a matter of survival. She wasn't paying attention to the color of the trees in her 20s, but I was. And it surprised her, and it also made her feel good, that a child of hers would take time to appreciate the earth, Mother Earth, Grandmother Earth. She actually gets kind of upset with me when I use the term Earth, Mother Earth. She doesn't understand that because she grew up with the term grandmother. That Earth is our grandmother. That we came from her, that the first people came from her, and so those. She's our grandmother. She's not necessarily our direct mother. Semantics. I don't get into it with her. I know when to shut up sometimes. All right, so where was I? Jamie Sams, when she writes about the fire medicine, she's also talking about the separation that, it's a good thing I talked about mom living in Milwaukee. Jamie Sams was writing about how humans, the two-legged, sometimes what we do is we separate ourselves from Grandmother Earth and Grandfather Sky, that we have removed ourselves from remembering that energy field. And sometimes it is about survival, that your focus is on where am I going to live, where am I going to get my next meal, basic stuff. Jamie Sams, in her writing, she says that it's in this removal of ourselves from the energy of Grandmother Earth and Grandfather Sky that we create this separateness, that we no longer feel the energy of unity. I have to agree, because it's got to start somewhere, right? Somewhere where something that we knew innately that humans turn off or turn down is the connection to each other and to all of creation. That we see ourselves as separate, or feel ourselves as separate, think about ourselves as separate. So I had to start someplace in our own minds and our own belief systems. And a belief system is only a thought that is repeated over and over and over and gets passed down from generation to generation. That's a belief system. Reminds me of the story of a young woman who is carrying on the traditions, like we do around holidays, the certain meals that families cook and that kind of thing. And it was a holiday, I think it was Easter. She was learning how to prepare part of that meal, and her mother was helping her. And so they always had ham, and so they took out the baking dish and took the ham out, and her mother is telling her, now you have to cut the ends off. Okay, cut the ends off, and they fix it up. And so her daughter's looking at her and saying, why are we cutting the ends off? Why? Okay, I'll do it, but why? And her mother tells her, I don't know. That's how I was taught. That's what I was shown how to do. That's the right way to do this. And so when the grandmother shows up, The granddaughter asks her grandmother, why do we cut the ends off the ham for it to make this meal? And the grandmother is telling her, well, that's how my mother did it. And she did it that way because she only had one baking dish, one baking pan. And the ham never fit in that baking dish, and so she'd cut the ends off for it to fit into the dish. And so that was passed down from one generation to another, thinking that this is the way to make this meal, and it became a tradition. When I heard that story, I'm thinking, that's how belief systems get started. It's a good thing we ask questions every once in a while. Hi, Jocelyn. Welcome. Glad you joined us. So anyway, we're talking about the fire medicine. The fire medicine. All right. So there's one other piece in here that I thought it was interesting. It said, through the ages, many medicine people have used fire to assist them in remaining connected to the earth when they journey through dream time. They literally build a special fire, small fire. It's tended by an assistant, and the shaman or the holy person then does their soul traveling. And they travel through the darkness is what it's called. And it looks like the Seneca call it the dream time. She says, when all the parts of the body are nourished through Mother Earth and Grandfather Sun's fires, the body will feel comfortable enough for the spirit to leave. And so when we do that kind of soul traveling, literally our spirit leaves our physical body sleeping, and we travel to other dimensions, and we experience other things. For those who are walk the shaman's path or the holy person's path, the medicine path, there's work that's done in the spirit. And so Jamie is talking about one of the 6 fires, and this is one of the 6 is how fire burns wood and how it keeps you warm and keeps you safe. Now the fire tender, the fire keeper, the assistant keeps this small fire burning until the holy person, the shaman, comes back into their body, their spirit comes back into their body, and the Dreamtime journey work is done, is finished. And so I read that and I thought, wow, that has so many layers of meaning to it. In fact, so many, I might actually use that topic for the June shamanic mini class that we do on the Academy close page, and talk about that journey work when your spirit travels, when you do that kind of traveling. And so because there's so many layers to that, and that fire keeper and tending that fire, because you can that could actually be not just a physical act, but it could be a metaphoric, that the fire tender is keeping that the core fire, that spark of life that we have within us, that at the core that we were talking about, Grandfather Sun sitting in the core, that fire keeper, that tender, is keeping that fire going in the physical body, to keep that body safe and warm and protected, while the shaman or holy person is out doing their work in dream time. That's pretty deep stuff. And I think we are going to take that conversation over to the Academy. I think we're going to be doing that the second Thursday. So not this coming Thursday, but next Thursday. So fire medicine. Here's the last piece that she says that I found very interesting. She says, the fire of creation lives within all of us and in all of our relations. When we are balanced, when we balance the sacred fire inside ourselves in every form it takes, We can then perceive and become anything in creation through melding with the sacred fire in all things. This talent is spontaneous creation. When our internal fire melds with all of creation's internal and eternal fire, is spontaneous creation. I like that. That's huge. That's big stuff. Big medicine, as they say. Passion for living is the fuel for this inner fire and is found through appreciation of every blessing physical life offers. So we're back to the gratitude, back to being thankful, back to being appreciative for our physical life and everything in it, right? We talked about that yesterday with the card of Field of Plenty. And I like that. I like that a lot. Feeding that fire, that internal fire. So when we get this card, according to Jamie Sams, we're acknowledging the fire within. That if we have any judgments about passion on the physical level, it may be time to clear them. All acts of life are sacred when treated in a respectful manner. She says that in all cases, fire medicine insists that we use the fire within to fuel our lives with our energy. This energy comes from Mother Earth's passionate physicality and grandfather son's spontaneous love. When we are in balance, this divine union sparks our natural desire for experiencing life. If the spontaneity is already happening to you, to please continue. I like that part. Please continue. So basically, and that's what we're all striving for, right? Is balance. To have balance in our lives. And when we feed that internal fire, and we're in balance, we're able to utilize and express our gifts to the rest of the world. And so here it is, fire medicine, passion and spontaneity. And look how that, the image, how he's standing right in the middle of that sacred fire. Pretty good stuff, I think. I don't know. What do you guys think of the fire medicine? Here's the poem. Sacred fire within us, place of eternal flame, burn away the barriers in great mystery's name. Teach us warmth and goodness, the love of grandfather's son, melting every difference until we truly are one. Yeah, she's a good poet too, isn't she? There we go. Elise is saying love, the non-show again today. She loves it. I know, the non-show. Yeah, it's the card draw for the day. Elise, one of these, thank you. Without you calling it that, I thought, oh, maybe we should do something. But I really do like the spontaneity of it too. I do. And I feel like we're just sitting around, the dining table or sitting around on the porch or something, have our coffee or tea or whatever, and we're just talking and sharing about spiritual aspects of things, and using Jamie cards, her cards to spark the conversation, right? To see what resonates with you, resonates with me. Which reminds me, anything that resonated with you today in the sharing of that information and the stories, take and utilize it. Use it somehow. If it resonated with you. If it didn't resonate with you, and just let that stuff go. It's okay. It wasn't meant for you then. Just take the pieces that were and see how the day unfolds for you with this information, with this vibration, with the frequency that we were just in with the fire medicine, and see how that goes. Yeah. And, and if you have a good story to share about it, you can always come back to the recorded video and share your story. and how the information came to you, whether you witnessed it, or or you participated somehow with it. The action part. Because I truly believe that in the age that we're living in now, and where we're going, is that we're no longer practicing. It's all about application. It's all about using our gifts and using our experience, our education, both formal and informal. So sharing your story, you never know who you're going to help, right? Right. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and we'll see you back here tomorrow morning, Sunday morning, with the next card. Let's see what Spirit has to say to us tomorrow. Okay. All right. Bama Mina, until we see each other again.